Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
All right, welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim, and our guest today is Will. So, Will, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do for a living.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Will Nitze. I am the founder and CEO at IQBAR. We're a brain and body nutrition company. So we make plant protein bars, hydration mixes, instant coffee. And the idea is everything is super nutrient dense and geared towards brain and body wellness, nutrition, etc. Based in Boston, Mass. Oh, actually, I just moved to Miami, but I'm back in Boston for a couple of weeks. And yeah, that's me.
Awesome. So how did you get the idea to start this company?
I got the idea. Well, it was a super lengthy and circuitous route to get there. Basically, I was really interested in brain nutrition. I was really interested in the brain, period, psychology, neuroscience, et cetera, in college. And then I got really interested in nutrition when I was like 24, 25, 26, and paleo was becoming big. And then subsequently keto was becoming big. And I just got interested in a lower carb diet, really. And I read a couple books that got me even more interested in it. Grain Brain was a big one, for instance. And then I got really interested in entrepreneurship concurrently, and specifically consumer goods entrepreneurship. So I read another book called Mission in a Bottle that was about the founding of Honest Tea. So anyway, all those things kind of collided, and I thought, I want to be an entrepreneur. I'm really interested in the brain. I'm really interested in nutrition. Like, why doesn't brain food exist? That was where my brain went, and it didn't exist, and I couldn't figure out why. So yeah, that was the genesis of it all.
Awesome. So what was that process like? I mean, it's one thing to have an idea, but to actually, come up with this perfect formula to build out your product.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know how to make a product. I didn't know where to start. And so really the first step was call a bunch of people who would have a better idea and ask them, how did they create their first iteration? And everyone does it differently. There's no quote unquote right way to do it. I mean, how most people start is they'll find most people who want to start at some scale, let's say a couple tens of thousands of units, they'll find a contract manufacturer and they will kind of formulate with them. An important variable when you're making a product is it has to be manufacturable, it has to be producible on equipment. And so you don't want to make something in your kitchen that then can't really scale or transfer to an actual manufacturing line. So I met these two guys who started a bar company, and I basically replicated their initial roadmap of run a Kickstarter, generate a bunch of upfront demand, take that demand to a co-packer, contract manufacturer, formulate with them something that would work on their line, and then produce that, and then go from there. And then everything after that is sort of just iteration after iteration after iteration, like tweaking. And then you get to a certain scale where really you can dictate what the product is and the formulation is, because you just have enough volume where the manufacturer sort of morphs the way they're doing things to what you need them to do. But yeah, that's how we started.
Awesome. So can you just talk more about the product? So you mentioned it's a product that, boosts your brain. So what does that actually mean? And what does that look like?
Yeah. And there's like a spectrum of like medicine on one end and like pure non-functional food on the other end. And you have to decide where you want to live. And so we want to live in the middle. Like, we don't want to make any hard claims, but basically we just want to, the whole idea is be a brain healthier option, center on nutrients that are good for the brain. I took that in a super literal and quantitative way from the outset and just said, okay, what's the laundry list of things that are good for your brain? And then what are whole food ingredients that are richest in those things? So like vitamin E, that would be like sunflower seeds or almonds. Flavonoids, that would be blueberries or matcha or cocoa. And so, that basically generated this long list of things. And then it's like, okay, can I make a product out of just those things, or almost, mostly those things? And that was it. Like that was how I did it. And then, there's certain things that you want to use, like curcumin or resveratrol or these other things that have all this great clinical data that are good for your brain, but it's just not going to work. It's not, either it's not price feasible, right? Because no one's going to buy a $10 bar. Organoleptically feasible, meaning like taste, smell, sight, etc. If you want, like putting curcumin in a bar will make it orange. It'll stain your fingers. It'll taste terrible, etc. So that's not going to work. So anyway, you just have to sort of make a few micro compromises along the way and to achieve what will be commercially viable, what will sell for the right price point, have the right profile, etc. And that's just like trial and error. Like brute trial and error, or at least it was in my experience. So yeah, that was the journey.
So in terms of like, I mean, obviously it's a very competitive space, and I think lots of your competition is not the healthiest, right? There's a lot of misconceptions. You see these protein bars that have like 20 grams of sugar, and they're just not healthy for you. So how do you inform your potential customers about what you're doing? Because I think, obviously more people should know about healthier options as opposed to what you're just seeing at the convenience store.
Yeah, I mean, be very loud and vocal about it, like put in big, giant font, 1 gram sugar on everything, for instance, advertise around those key, like it really depends on what you're selling, what category are you in, and then how do people shop for that category or items in that category? Meaning, what do they care about? So like with bars, they care about protein, source of protein, sugar, net carbs if they're, let's say dieting or on the keto diet, label cleanliness, are there weird things in here that I can't pronounce? That's just bars, right? That's different if you're buying tortilla chips. It's probably more about like how crunchy is it and is it salty enough and things like that. So you just know your category, know what people care about. And then, but so yeah, in bars, those are the big ones, right? So just hammer first of all, create a product that's good along those vectors and then really, really underscore those in all your messaging and branding.
Makes sense. So what channels are you using now to sell it? Is it mostly D2C or is it in stores? Like where could people find it?
Yeah. So we're in a number of Costco regions, Walmart, Kroger, Wegmans, Sprouts. We're in, I think it's roughly 8,000 doors now. And then website is IQBAR.com and then Amazon.com. But our biggest channel is definitely Amazon. And then Costco, I believe, is our second biggest now. But we're all over. Go to our website and we have a store locator if you want to try it in a store.
So in terms of Amazon, right, it's a very interesting thing. I think that many folks in our podcast kind of try and avoid Amazon. That they want to be on there, but it's also kind of like a double-edged sword because the fees are so high. So how do you, I guess, utilize Amazon, but also try to push people to your website?
When you advertise, of course, you can push to wherever you want, right? So you probably are going to push to your website, although some people are really taking an Amazon first approach and pushing everything to Amazon. But I mean, we don't necessarily desperately want someone to go to our website over Amazon. I mean, it is a higher blended net margin, but you'd rather get the sale over not getting the sale. So like that's what I always say about Amazon. Like this kind of like the call out hierarchy and branding and all that is very category dependent. So do people buy your category on Amazon? Not that many people buy furniture on Amazon, but a lot of people buy protein bars on Amazon. So it's just like know your category and where people are shopping. And if that just is where people are shopping, then you're leaving a massive amount of revenue on the table by not. I mean, a good example would be Athletic Greens, right? They clearly took a non-Amazon approach. I think that was really smart for a long time. I would argue it's like totally hampered their growth though, because I mean, you have entire giant $100 million plus brands whose sole business model is knock off Athletic Greens and sell it on Amazon. That's how big the opportunity cost of them not selling on Amazon is. So, I mean, it also depends on, maybe this is a 50-year play for you and you just want to own the customer and it's not all about revenue, and that's fine too, but it's a very tough sell to exclude what is just objectively the biggest online selling platform.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, Amazon controls so much market share, and I think at least for me, I buy most of my protein bars on Amazon too. It's just so much easier.
Yeah, and you're bundling it. It's like, how do people shop for food, period? Well, they go to a grocery store and they have a cart and they throw like 30 different things in it. How do people shop online for stuff, household pantry items? Well, they make a digital shopping cart and throw 20 items in. So it's like, if you're going to force them to go to your website to buy your one thing, you're just adding so much friction to that like grocery shopping experience. It's not hard to understand why that would lose you a lot of sales.
That's true. So what would you say is the biggest challenge that you're facing currently in the business?
Honestly, it's like I would say operationally executing at greater and greater scale with the same number of people. So like one of our tenets is just do more with less people. Very, obviously difficult, but in CPG is, I believe, is pretty much the only way to get to meaningful profitability is to have low SG&A. But if, like I said, it gets harder as you get bigger and bigger. So I think two ways you can sort of do that intelligently, I think, is pick channels that scale really well. So like sending, let's say, 20 trucks to Costco is not all that much harder than sending 10 trucks. It's double the revenue, obviously. Amazon, right? Selling double the revenue doesn't entail double the effort necessarily. Like your revenue can outpace your headcount. But again, it doesn't mean it's not tough. So I think just for us in the next year, it's just like, how do we really operationally execute to meet the, let's say, double the demand or double the sales that we're trying to get next year?
Makes sense. In terms of this scalability, I mean, obviously now there's a lot of talk about AI. So do you feel like using AI can help you scale without hiring more people?
No, I don't. I haven't seen AI used in any way by any CPG brand in any compelling way thus far. I'm sort of the opinion that like wave one of AI will be more work than like it's cool and fun to think about. And, there's so many possibilities. The actual practical practitioner's use of it is, in my opinion, probably going to be almost certainly going to be more work than it is benefit until you get to like Gen 2 or Gen 3 of AI based tools. And for me, it's like just wait till that happens and wait till it flips where it's just so obviously going to be a better solution for less time, money, energy. I haven't seen a single use case where it was working well for CPG.
What about like customer service, high level chatbots, for example?
That would be the most compelling instance. I would still argue there are ways to do that via a human that may be more expensive, but are less expensive net, meaning you will retain more customers, piss off less customers, have better lifetime value, have better satisfaction, have better net promoter score, blah, 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 by having a human. And you can get customer service via a human fairly cheaply now. And so for me, it's just a tough sell. You just know, even though there can be compelling chatbot products, it's going to break and then it's going to piss people off. And then again, you're going to have to like worry about it, retool it, yada, yada. And then at the end of the day, you're like, oh, wait, was that even worth it? Like I could have just had a human being. So it's not at the level yet where it's even close to a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, I would say it's something where it's like, it could be a combination of both. Like we mentioned Amazon, obviously Amazon has AI components where there are certain things that it depends on what you need, where they're using AI, and then eventually they can get you to a human if needed. But I think it does save them. Obviously that they're, pretty large, but it saves them lots of money by being able to kind of implement AI depending on what the customer is actually looking for.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things where it's like, what's my shipping with like tracking, right? That's just objectively like, okay, yeah, like send them their tracking based on their customer ID or based on their email address or whatever. Like, fair enough. It's just in like food. Like the other thing too is really your goal should be to get as few customer service tickets as possible, not necessarily to like handle them as well. I mean, you want to handle all tickets well, obviously, but if you get 15 tickets on the same thing, probably there should be some structural change that makes those tickets go away entirely. And maybe you have better FAQs, right? That like tells people the answers to really, really commonly asked questions. I think you miss that if you just move over to AI, right? Again, I'm sure there are other brands that are using it, but it's like that takes a lot of mental power, and I don't know. It's not so compelling that I'm like clamoring to do it.
No, yeah, that makes sense. I think to your point, it's something where, people need to look for that information, but I think some people are too lazy to even look for the FAQ. They're just asking questions that you can easily find like on the website. It just depends. I mean, to your point, if you have a good structured website, you're probably not going to get those questions. But like a FAQ is hidden somewhere. People are going to keep emailing you the same questions over and over again.
But like for food products too, like you get really esoteric nutritional questions all the time that I can answer actually very easily, but it's like, how the hell would a AI bot answer that? And then the other thing too is like responses often require some deftness, like some nuance and some touch. And I don't know. I don't see AI doing that today.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. And I think it just depends how well it gets trained, like the model is trained on the data. If it's high level machine learning, I think that's also a problem I've seen is like you have all these companies saying that they're AI, but they're not actually using AI. There's very minimal AI involved. But if it's really trained, understanding the products and the customers, it's a different use case. So like I'll ask you in terms of right now, what would you say is your top priority going into Q4?
Well, the operational stuff. We're doing a brand refresh, and that's just an insane amount of work. Revamping our website. Like we're building this custom bundle builder, which is its own whole project. Just making sure we roll out revisions without breaking stuff, which is never 100% possible. But yeah, so it's just like sort of like I don't know, 4 or 5 different projects that are all just we're trying to make sure they go off without a hitch. And then yeah, like I said, it's just okay, now if we have to double next year, how do we make sure all the trains arrive on time? And because it just gets messy when you need to do 2 times as much stuff, it just gets messy.
So when it comes to making website revisions, are you kind of strategically timing it out? Because I spoke to like somebody else recently, they were just like November to January, early January, they're not doing anything on their website or on their system because any small bug or small issue can really impact sales. That's like I guess like prime time for CPG and for e-commerce.
Depends. So it's the slowest time for health food. Well, minus Black Friday, Cyber Monday. But yeah, like Q4 is the worst quarter typically for health food because no one's eating healthy. But no, I mean, we don't. Yeah, I mean, if timelines are like naturally aligning with Jan 1, New Year, New You, or whatever, great. And we are trying to do that. But I would say we sort of just launch things as they're ready, for better or worse. We'd rather get it launched. And we don't really do giant, like, we do email marketing, obviously, but like when we launch something, it's not like we're trying to get a bunch of publications to write about it, and we'll just roll it out and tell our customers about it and then just steadily grow it. But like we launched a hydration product in November, right? Not that many people are hydrating in the middle of winter, but that's fine, right? Like you just want to get it out into the market, start getting feedback, start growing your customer base. And if you have a long term sort of purview, it doesn't really matter when you launch.
So what would you say is the one biggest piece of advice you wish you knew before you started this company?
I think I wish I knew. So, I mean, this depends on why you're starting a business. Like for us, it was always start it, grow it, sell it, not hold it for 30 years. I think I wish I knew that you have to get to a certain business size to even be sellable in the first place, which is kind of crazy in CPG. Like you basically have to get to 50 million in sales to sell your business for a good multiple. There are some exceptions. Maybe you're ultra profitable. Let's say you're selling skincare products or jewelry or whatever. Yeah, you can sell a lot earlier because you're just so profitable. But for most CPG brands, it takes getting to 20, let's say 20 million bucks to be meaningfully profitable. Maybe 30, maybe 40. If you're beverage, maybe 50. And now in an environment where you have to be high growth and profitable and hit a really high top line number, I mean, it's just an insanely tall order. So I think it's like doing a disservice to people and this dovetails with what I wish I knew, for them not to understand when they're starting consumer goods brands, like, just so you know, like this could be worth zero unless you get to 50 million, which is just a wild dynamic, but is true as far as I can tell.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think a lot of people, they don't understand what they're getting themselves into. And especially now, as you said, I mean, looking at profitability, I mean, a couple of years ago, things were different, but in 2023, everybody's looking at profitability. It's not just revenue.
Yeah, and by the way, you still have to grow fast, which is the craziest part, right? Because sort of like the yesteryear darlings and stories and things, cases everyone looked up to, it was really all just like growth based. Truly, no one cared about the profitability because that's not what people were exiting based on. And it's just so like how do you get profitable? You stop spending money that's getting a bad return. How do you grow when you stop doing that? I don't know. I mean, you have to be better, smarter, like leaner. It's very hard to change the DNA of an organization that is built on raise a lot, spend a lot, burn a lot, grow a lot, into like still grow a lot and somehow turn on a profit spigot. Like it's almost impossible. The brands that are like winning and exiting, that are really profitable, they were oddballs from day one. Like they were exceptional from day one. Before 2022 happened, they already had that profit mindset. I've seen few to none that like were that old model and successfully crossed the chasm into the new model.
That makes sense. So if somebody watching this wanted to reach out to you, do you mind sharing like the best way to get in contact with you? Maybe your website or social media handles?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, you can just email me. My email is eatiqbar.com or will@iqbar.com. We just bought the IQBAR.com domain name, which is a whole other story. That was a journey. But yeah, will@eatiqbar.com is probably best.
Awesome. Well, Will, thank you so much for your time. We're rooting for you. Hopefully you guys have a great Q4 ahead. And yeah, thanks again.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Bye.